ready? Town of Green Mountain Falls Board of Trustees regular meeting for Tuesday, June 20th. Will come to order. The time is 7:02. We are all present except Trustee Quinn. Tyler, would you give us in the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And as we begin, I know there is one addition to the agenda. We are going to add the ordinance to item new business D. Is there any further additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda? Seeing none, move to approve as corrected.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Mac?
Is there a copy of the Trails Committee minutes available? I couldn't get it on the computer today. Same thing with resolution 2009-5.
Let's see. Is Trails in here? I have a copy.
I got one from Joe.
Okay. Ready then. Item 3 is the consent agenda, which is the approval of the Board of Trustees minutes for June 6th. Bring into record the approved PC minutes for May 23rd. Bring into record the approved Trails Committee minutes for June 8th. And approve the bills payable run from June 7th through the 20th in the amount of $2,972.31. Would anyone bring out any one or all items for discussion? I will say I had some spelling errors that I did correct, and I will pass on to the clerk, but we can approve to content on the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Very good.
You must scan it too.
Yes, I did. Perfect. I like good scanning. In new business, item A is the F&D International, Frickin and Gary Florence discussing the new fire department.
Actually, the new fire station.
That does make sense.
It's
You
part of
just
the-
read what I told. What I
I just noticed that myself.
Yeah.
We've been on the agenda a couple times and told to be sure that we got everything correct, and so at this point, we've got everything correct for it should be where we want it. And since I have absolutely no idea about these things, I'm going to ask Todd to do the rest of the presentation.
All right.
So we did go through the planning board a month or so ago, I guess. And we showed them a plat to go through the subdivision process pursuant to the town land use regulations. That would be a minor subdivision. As Gary pointed out, we wanted to tweak some things, get some things right. There was more having to do with bearings and monuments and stuff like that. The concept of what I'm going to show you here didn't change from the planning commission. Just kind of, but one of the things is we want to make sure that this property line here, which is subdivided the lot, is parallel to the south. So just little things like that. But what we have is, the town hall is shown here in the lighter gray. And this is all the land to the north of you right now. Right now it's called Lot 2, and we're proposing to subdivide it on behalf of Michael Lambert, the property owner, into 2 equally sized lots. Just approximately, they're about an acre. This is 1 acre. In that process, in order, and the part of the reason is that Mr. Lambert has worked out an agreement with the fire district to sell Lot 2A But in order to do that, we have to create, of course, a new lot. So that's the process. Along with that, we wanted to make sure that both lots had access to a public right-of-way, which is pretty critical too. So one of the things we're proposing in this is that the road up to the town hall, which our understanding was it was never formally dedicated as a right-of-way. This replat of this area creates a public dedicated right-of-way. And it's the same dimension approximately as what you see, what was done in the past. The other thing that we're proposing to do is create a drainage easement that comes along the south property line and forms a community water quality stormwater control pond for your lot, being the town's lot, Lot 2A and Lot 2B. And we would provide the engineering part of scope of service to make sure that it is developed and sized appropriately for the runoff that we'll be getting from these two lots. And that's probably, so yeah, so we're dedicating the street. We're asking for a stormwater easement and a sharing of the stormwater pond. Of course, it have to be improved and developed and created to be simple lots.
Where does the water currently go?
Where's what?
Where's the water currently go?
Well, right now, this is undeveloped, so the water, well, based on the topography, it probably flows to the south, maybe down into Joyland property, and then, if I remember, we actually took a year ago, the Joyland property. It probably flows along the property line, ultimately winding up in Fountain, to the access point to Joyland, crosses that, and goes into the Fountain Creek on the east side of the bridge, which is where your stormwater goes eventually as well. So the remainder of the process would then go, once these are created, we of course go through the land planning process with the town, regional building as well. Go through all that process. What's it? The new street is exactly where the old street is. If I understood correctly, it was never formally dedicated, so it's actually a driveway.
Right.
But in order to create two legal sellable lots, it has to touch a public right of way. So the right of way will end at the property line. You can see the property line, the subdivision that we're proposing is just putting in this line right here, which then has a curve to it right here, and it touches basically the north side of Lot 1. And that public right-of-way will come up to that point, and it will touch both lots. So both lots will have a dedicated access to a public right-of-way.
But you're proposing to build on two on this end, right? Not on one on the.
What's that?
What, so where's the fire station?
Well, the fire station will be developed on Lot 2A.
That's that whole.
That's this whole block to the west. And the lot to the east, Mr. Lambert has some plans as well. They'll be coming forth to the planning commission with this fall, something we'd like to do.
The storm retention, we're proposing for both of those lots.
Yeah, due to the topography, we're proposing that, instead of taking land and developing another stormwater control area, we're proposing in these three lots, the town's Lot 1, which you have, Lot 2A and Lot 2B, would have a shared water quality stormwater control plan.
How does you?
We would probably work out an intergovernmental agreement between the district and the town. Who's going to make, things like, all right, who's going to make,
I'm more concerned about the private property that could be commissioned.
where's that? Oh, here? Well, it would have to be an agreement through the planning process, and then, in order for Mr. Lambert and the district to get their planning rights, there would have to be an agreement on how we're going to manage that stormwater.
Do you have a site plan in this topography of the site station?
We have one that's being developed, but it's not we have to determine if this is agreeable to the town in order to divide the property this way until we can actually formalize it. So we have modeled and done some work on what the develop what the site plan would look like. Basically, the station would be positioned in a position that kind of runs in this direction with the apparatus bays, the garages that would be facing to the south and east. So their apparatus would come up the road, drive in, come up, and back in to the station.
But right now, the retention pond is sized for our lot,
That's right.
so that it just discharges at historical rates. It just seems like an awful lot to put on that little pond. I understand it's going to be engineered,
Yeah, it would become a little larger.
but that would take up really more of our space for the retention pond, right?
Yeah, right now you can see the footprint of your building, and you can see we're proposing this easement down here. It's basically land that's not usable for building improvements on, vertical improvements on. So, I don't think the town would be losing anything, and I think the town would be benefiting.
How do you propose to bank that retention pond? I mean, currently it's gravel. Are you planning on, because if you're planning on concrete, that changes the face of out front. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I have no idea. There'll have to be a controlled outlet device. You've seen them, they're square concrete boxes.
Right,
There probably should have been one there to begin with when that was developed. And so you definitely have some a concrete structure in there that would provide for controlled flow releases based on storm event parameters. I think the rest of it would be a naturalized pond.
Is your site plan in terms of the subdivision dependent upon some sort of agreement on the drainage control plan?
Absolutely. This is this would be worthless for the fire department if it wasn't for the town agreeing to cooperate with us and have a mutual water quality facility. And to be honest with you, this is probably the only available site for the fire district to actually build a new fire station. As you know, their current one is quite old and in a floodplain, which is probably not a good place to have an emergency response facility. So,
I'm not speaking for anyone else. I don't think anyone is against the fire station, but we have to put on our government hats and think what's good for the people who own this building too, and that's the
Did
citizens.
this come before the planning commission?
it did, and they approved it, or they recommended it to go forth in front of the city council.
And how many enumeration of that right of way turning, driveway turning from the right of way to the
Once the public right of way, and it ends at this northern property line of lot 1, the town's lot. From there in, that's a private shared easement agreement between the two properties. That becomes a private driveway.
Understood, I'm worried about the enumeration in terms of the lots and the existing. The town hall is addressed on, I'm talking about addressing,
Oh, you can number anything you like.
you can't,
Well, whatever your town code says for that.
regional building things.
All right, whoever
What I'm wondering is what will happen?
I don't know, we have to talk to them. But each building will get an assigned street address.
And I'm curious as to whether we're gonna change the town hall address as well,
I don't know why you would.
because we're no longer on UPass Ave or Mountain Falls Road.
Our driveway is now off of the new right of way.
That's right. So we're changing our address.
That's a good point, probably are. And, this lot 2A needed a public access anyway, or lot 2, even if it wasn't subdivided.
Couldn't it be done through an easement?
I'm not an attorney, but my understanding is they actually have to touch, a lot has to touch a public right of way. Because I don't think a lender would lend any money on a development on it. But I'm not an attorney, that's a legal question.
Probably good thing for the town.
Your town code requires that the property have access to a public road. So,
Not even through the easement.
no, it says,
This is really exclude.
they'll have in front of you access to a public road.
It's good that you can ask our town attorney to look at that, see if that's an option.
Yeah.
Because that would be access. The easement would provide you access.
Mac, do you have a question?
A couple. If you dedicate that driveway as a public right of way, you can number any number you want. That could be 1, 2, and 3. And it's the town's protocol, it's the town's responsibility, not regional buildings. Regional building will follow up on addressing lots that are already existing. And if a new lot falls in to an area where there already are addresses, they will handle that. But it's the town's purview as to what the street gets named and what the numbers are on that street. More importantly, to me, the drainage is a potential problem. We have a short history, but a history nonetheless, of the drainage that goes into that retention pond as of right now. What gets added to that, we don't know what's gonna happen. We can go by the math, I suppose, from the engineer, but if something were to occur that would damage the drainage or the pond, I don't believe that the town should be, I think the town should be indemnified from having to bear the cost of repairs. Because we already have a history that, and the drainage creates no problem as of today. But if we incur a problem somewhere down the road because of the extra drainage, there should be some indemnification to the town.
Yeah.
So that
I
the
think
town
we-
doesn't have to pay for repairs or rebuilding that lake.
Well, and I think that'd be part of a good IGA, and I think that's a good point. When we write the IGA,
It's gonna be more than an IGA, it's gonna be private party involved.
oh yeah, because we have the, oh yeah, keep forgetting we have the, whatever that's going to be. Now, when this building was being built, there's a 2-inch private water line that serves properties east of 24. It wasn't located, but we know it's there.
Oh, yeah, well, I've heard stories of that one too. And it wasn't located either when we called out for all the locations.
Right, they,
But we will have to find it. I mean,
Right.
we would find it, because one of the things that the fire department will do is they'll bring a water line up the right of way for water service to these 2 lots. So during that process, there is a 2-inch line that runs somewhere, anecdotally,
yeah, the 2-inch
somewhere
line.
through here. So it was not, when we called locate through the proper channels to call locate, you probably saw all the paint striped out there and everything for a couple of weeks. That line was not found. So
Yeah, we know there's a mystery line, but
Yeah,
they're getting
so
water from somewhere.
there might be some other history things, but the intent is to call locate service as required. They'll call locate service. We will do our best to try to identify where that is. Maybe we can find some anecdotal information, some historical information that might not tell us exactly where it is, but it might give enough clue. Because when the construction goes to bring a water line up that street, they might find it the easy way or they might find it the hard way, but
Yeah.
at least it will get found, I'm assuming.
And then the other question I had, and this was raised by Rob Severs, who saw this letter. We purposefully built the easement in the driveway, not in the middle, so as to interrupt as few services as possible. And that's a concern for us with our Marshall's department being up here. If you're proposing to use the same utility easement, can you use the one
Well,
not in the middle so that we're not interrupting, services? Because we all know how building is up here. We've all built, you think it's gonna be smooth, no, 4 days later, you get to the root of the problem.
yeah, like you have an electrical service transformer about here, and you've got electrical lines that are actually running diagonal through the driveway now. We have gas that comes up here. The gas actually goes quite far to the north. But when we go through the land planning process and show those things, that could be, you know, you could say, I would like that water line to be brought up on the west side of the right of way.
Okay, just making sure.
Are you gonna have fire hydrants?
Per code and also because they might need it for training. Like shutting it off slowly.
Board, do you have further questions? All right, what are you asking of us today?
Uphold the lower board's recommendation to approve this plat and authorize, I guess, the town manager or the mayor to sign it and allow us to record it. Let me see, what's the signature block on it? I think it's the mayor or the town manager. So whenever it's the planning commission approval, and then yes, the mayor, and then the clerk attests to the mayor's signature.
Board being on the fire department, I would like not to accuse myself. I don't see any conflict. If you want to make the way.
Anyone say that?
I have concerns about the water area. I don't feel the parking in front of the town hall was ever quite done to original plans. I assume there would be possibly multiple rows of terraced parking at some point, which would reclaim that space. So I agree there's not much use for a structure there, but there's certainly use for the town potentially in that land.
Well, that's one of the things why we thought about that. And we looked at a conceptual parking plan in front of the town hall. That's why we minimized or tried to keep the proposed easement. We're probably only 10 feet north from the high edge of your pond now. So the idea would be that this would be, could be developed for future parking. And I would imagine if you did, you'd either, well, you have steps and you have an ADA issue, so I'm thinking you might have a retaining wall along here, and this becomes leveled out at grade to the town hall, or you put your accessible parking up here, and you have non-accessible parking
Right.
below.
That's what I had assumed would happen at some point in the future.
But we kind of played around with that.
It sounds like a lot of the water's already coming this way. It's just not purposely being channeled into a pond. I assume the water from 2A is hitting 2B
Based on the fire,
now, and 2B goes,
it goes down, but it all slopes this way,
Okay.
and then it slopes out.
But they're gonna base it on what water is displaced from the rooftops and the parking lot areas. That's how they're gonna base that.
Well, one step that people did years before I sat in this seat is put into place that we should have an engineer paid for by the applicant who looks at our needs as well. And I think that's a good check and balance to have. It is part of our code. And I think that would answer a lot of questions about retention pond.
How are they gonna determine the size of the detention pond, or the detention pond, if they don't know what they're gonna use that other lot for?
Which is a,
Well, we would work with Mr. Lambert on that and develop a concept, or maybe assume worst case, that we have all impervious material. You know, that's probably the safest, that would give you the most conservative pond size.
I'd like to point out, we went through this discussion last year, and Mr. Figgin is a registered engineer in the state of Colorado. And if we had to hire a redundant engineer to do that, that's gonna be money out of our pocket, and out of your pockets, that doesn't need to be spent.
No, I understand, and I've given this a lot of thought, because I think we all wanna see this new fire department, fire station, it's good for all of us. But it was pointed out to me pretty forcefully that we also have a responsibility up here to look after the other public building.
Well, then let me ask a rhetorical question. Did you hire a second engineer to supervise?
Not to supervise, but we had an engineer who made sure that what our land was for our purpose. The retention.
A second engineer?
We didn't have a second engineer because we were just one entity. But now we have two entities. I understand completely what you're saying, and I've heard this discussion. And if the board chooses to go that way, you know, that's the board rules. But I'm trying to also be fair to this little building and the people that own it in the town to make sure that we're good stewards of all our properties.
I understand that, but what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You know, if you didn't do it, you're a government just like we are. So if you can waive it for you, why should you not waive it for us?
Heck, I wasn't sitting up here then, but I'm trying the best I can to answer that. I do understand what you're saying, but we would ask it, of Mike Lambert, if he wasn't a government, I mean, he's not a government entity, he is planning on building up there. We would ask of him, or of, if they were building a home up there, that we had somebody look at it and make sure that, especially with the retention pond, I think we've had a lot of questions with the runoff and the retention pond. We all know the retention pond right now isn't sized appropriately. I think we're all smart to get as much information on that as possible, and part of that is we also back up to a public, well, private property in Joyland. And we need to be cognizant of what they think of a pond there.
So Mayor, he's, not to put words in your mouth, and correct me if I am, he's talking about possibly taking the most conservative estimates as he looks at his retention pond. So a second engineer at that point, the only alternative would be less conservative. So should we see what the most conservative looks like tonight? And before we force a second engineer? Because if we're going worst case scenario with lot 2B, then that's going to give us our biggest retention pond. That would be my thoughts.
Well, and I'm, you know, very serious and very curious about, I think I know what Mike Lambert's planning on putting back here. But if he does put up, it's all asphalt, I wanna make sure that we aren't having runoff problems behind this building. This building is our concern tonight, we have to make sure it is.
So as part of your review of this, would you take our building and work how worst case scenario would affect our building, not just the flow of water to the retention pond?
Of course. My responsibility is life and safety first, regardless of who my client is. That includes the community. So this pond would actually include a revision, a redo of the storm flows off of this property that we're standing on, and these two properties. I would be foolish if I just ignored this and didn't factor that into the design. And if you hired an independent engineer, they would expect the same.
right?
How much what would the cost of another consulting engineer be? And how much of the total cost of the fire station would that encompass?
I have no idea.
Well, I think that's probably a good question to ask, and you might want to talk to an engineer to find that out.
To what end? I mean, why do you ask that?
Well, the argument seems to be, well, we've got an engineer, and we don't want to spend money to pay another one to check his figures. But there's some merit hiring a second engineer to make sure that he hasn't made a mistake. And I guess it comes down to what it costs.
We're talking about two different types of engineers?
No.
And what engineer was not.
Well, I guess by the premise is perfect. People make mistakes. So I suppose it's an overabundance of caution. But I also want to know how much more is another consulting engineer going to cost, and what does that do to the total amount of money they have available to build their building and purchase their property.
Okay,
Cost is not a consideration here. The town ordinance, chapter 17, development code requires that the town hire an engineer to review the grading plan that is submitted by the petitioner.
which is,
It's public law.
and that's
There's
what
no
we.
latitude there. And even the town board cannot waive a public law. You can only change the law. So the argument is, we went through this with the town planning commission, and we were resolute. We said, we will follow chapter 17 of the public law, which says the petitioner will hire an independent engineer to review the grading plan. By the way, 17 requires a grading plan, and it's highly detailed on what has to be submitted. We haven't seen that yet, and I'm sure you're aware of the requirement.
But if I'm not mistaken, Colorado state law exempts governments from other governments' requirements.
And that brings up a question I had. I don't have the entire planning commission history or the petition in our packet tonight. But the petitioner in this case is a private property owner. Now, I am assuming there's some paperwork we have on file. We'll, notarize letter or whatever authorizing the district to act on owner's behalf, but I don't have that.
I haven't seen that. Dick, do you have that? Did you get that with planning commission? Because I don't remember seeing it with planning. Any letter from Lambert asking them to act on his behalf?
No, we have not had any correspondence from him. I'm sorry, the public law is the public law, and we have to follow it. You're gonna have to pay for an independent engineer to review your own work. I'm sorry, that's just the way the law is written.
Understand that Colorado state law exempts me from other government requirements.
Sorry.
So it appears to me that, obviously, fully supportive of the concept, but it appears that we're at an impasse with some legal questions. And I think that it's appropriate for us to seek our attorney, and we have a statement saying that none of this needs to be abided by, and we need to look into that. We need to look at easements, and we need to look at drainage and the impacts and the relationships with all these parties. And I'm also curious as to what the engineering would look like if it was proposed, if the town denied use of that existing drainage pond. How would that look laid out on the existing lots?
Well, I think I can't speak on behalf of the district. I'm just here to serve as at your pleasure and at the district's pleasure. I could probably speculate, I'm going to speculate, that based on the area footprint of a building that they need, not want, this project would die if
As configured.
It would be, it would completely, we would withdraw the petition for the subdivision.
But you have 2 lots there, which would provide
That's
sufficient
up
space. right?
to Mr. Lambert. He worked out an agreement with the district. This is what he's willing to allow to have happen. Anything less, that's part of the reason why we withdrew from the agenda on some previous board meetings, was one of the requirements is that they would have to be divided into 2 equally sized lots, and he required the southern lot.
So where I'm sitting at the dais tonight is that there's a lot of, I was looking at this as a much more simple subdivision without a lot of presumptions implied in what you're presenting tonight. So that's why I think we need more research from the town's perspective.
It's board's discretion. Again, we did meet with the town administrator to go through all this, a lot of this stuff before we got here. I think there are a lot of issues or a lot of other items that will follow through the planning process. But until we know if we have a lot, spending taxpayers' money to have us speculate on what might happen would be purely up to the district. Would probably be, I'm gonna speculate another $40,000 to $50,000 on something that we do that we don't know if we're going to get. And I'm a consultant for the district, looking out at the public interest as well, and I think that would be, I would feel, it would bother me to take that money.
So I think that's why I'm looking at this tonight as a time to pause to look into this further from the town's perspective. Because this is new information from what I had understood was going to be presented.
I'm still a little confused. It's been my whole situation since I've been on the board. What happened to the planning commission that it came to here? How does that, maybe somebody explain to me how it.
From what I understand with your land use code, we go to planning commission first.
Yeah.
They approved this plat.
And all this didn't come up at the planning commission with Mr. Bratton?
It sure did. And I believe the planning commission sent a referral up to the town council to say, we approve the plat. And we recommend to the council, please correct me if I'm putting words in the board's mouth.
The planning commission approved your drawing,
Why would you have done that if you are not,
because it met
if
everything.
you're now this code 17 is in question? Why
For
would you?
subdivision, except, I pointed out, chapter 17 land use code requires a grading permit, and the grading permit requires a grading plan. They have not done that yet. That's another step in the process.
That comes after,
Subdivision.
this comes after that, because we can't do a grading plan unless we know what we have to grade.
Our request to the planning commission was, will you approve the subdivision? It's an incremental step. Once we get the subdivision approved, then I'm willing to spend the money for the grading plan and everything else. But until I know that I can subdivide this, I don't want to spend a lot of money.
Hi.
Now, there'll be another step. We'll come and forth to the planning commission for all, we have to get the development rights. And the development rights might be granted pursuant to solving that problem, pursuant to where the water line goes, pursuant to whether you'll waive the additional fee for an engineer or not, and also pursuant to, the other request is waiving the development bond. That runs into a Tabor issue with the district because it would be greater than a year. When we work with public entities, which is primarily who our clients are, public entities usually waive a development bond for other public entities. But all that would be next steps after knowing if they have a lot.
But your question tonight is, do we approve
This plat.
this plat?
I would move to approve that plat, and
Second.
knowing that we have
steps, incremental steps down the road. But this is gonna be looked at any point. This could take a U-turn if something can't be.
But as far as the subdivision of this plat, that's the question for us. There is a motion and a second. Board, is there further discussion? We've got a, did you get a motion and second? You're still there. That's it. Robert, is there any further discussion on this?
I'm still concerned that we may or may not have a power of attorney for the property owner, who's the actual petitioner in this case.
Can we ask him to speak on the record right now? Granted them.
Sure.
What do you need from me?
Because I'm sorry, I didn't know you were here. We need to know that they've had permission from you to speak on your behalf as far as this goes. Okay, we just for the record need to make sure that that's done. If you weren't here, that would be a whole different thing.
We can follow that up with a letter from Mr. Lambert.
I think it'd be good to have in the file just to keep everything together. Thank you.
I'm also just concerned, for the record here, that whether or not the minor subdivision requires us to make that a public road versus an easement. I think that's an open question. So yeah, I mean, I guess the public road question, I don't want to, I'm happy to approve a subdivision, but if their drainage plan, is contingent, I'm not happy with that because I don't have all the facts or details yet. So I don't want to waste their time and money approving something that we later say, well, it doesn't even work, you can't even develop property because there's no water drainage.
I'm in a similar boat. I'm obviously very supportive. However, I think there's a number of things that need further investigation. The statement about the exempt from other government's laws, we need to get a better understanding of, as well as the drainage issues and the easement for access versus public road. It's my presumption that the easement would satisfy that access for public utility or otherwise. That's my base for support.
Well, you wrote down all the questions. I am more than willing to take that up with Mr. Gomez to make sure that we get those answered.
And I think we can do that in parallel with while they're working through that.
I think so too. When I get those questions tomorrow, I will send those to Mr. Gomez and make sure that we're all on the same page as far as our laws go, and that will take us either a step ahead or keep us right where we are. Mr. Lambert.
What was the question about whether there should be access to the property? And I couldn't quite hear what you were saying.
What he was questioning is, do we have to make it become a road, or can we just use a government, just an easement through the property?
Oh,
If it's just an easement, it doesn't change the addresses, and that's a whole other question.
well, you don't have to change the addresses anyway, would be my understanding. But when I sold this portion to the town, I was assured that I'd have access to the rest of the property.
Right, and that hasn't changed. It's
Okay.
just a matter of if it's a road or an
You're
easement.
checking that.
Yep, no, we
That's
are
how
not
it's
cutting you off from your land, for sure.
Well,
I don't want to be landlocked.
Yeah,
just to clarify, a public right-of-way is an easement.
well, it's, we need to answer a question of,
What?
And vice versa.
Is an easement of public right of way.
That's right. And
Yeah.
that could be a problem for us.
That's right, but it can be.
so we might as well,
And lenders probably, an easement, if you grant an access easement, you can even though you can maybe say it's irrevocable, all that kind of stuff, I don't think we get money to build a station. They want a public one that's not.
I think we just need to figure that out. I don't think it's a showstopper either way. We just have
No.
to figure out which way.
and we just want to make sure we're moving ahead on that so it doesn't stop things. If you will send that to me through your, because we had talked about that, does it have to be a road or not?
It's in your
It's in ours.
No, but you're stipulating some other conditions that are very important, and then you're talking about lending provisions. So if you can get with bonding agencies to see what those provisions and explore that side, we can explore the legal side from the town, but we need to know from your side, what restrictions and bondholders are gonna
You know,
constrain.
we did a public hospital in Grant County, and similar to something like this. Now, we're not using the same underwriter, but their counsel required us to dedicate a public right of way, because they couldn't put their investors at risk. So that could be a challenge.
Right, and
But-
we just wanna make sure that
Could-
we're covered there.
Could I ask, what is the hesitation on the town's part by making that a road versus what you have now?
I think a couple fold. One, I think it's the, some degree of the addressing, which I'm not sure is that big of an interest, but it's also, I have a little concern with it only going through our property line and not going further into that area. So, I think just needs a little exploration in my mind as to whether that needs to be carried out in that manner or whether we can achieve it in another easier way.
Also, the construction standards differ to some extent, because that's a challenging property, so. Challenging grade.
And it was designed and engineered as a driveway, it was not engineered as a road.
Just different than stick one was. Right.
And part of that's also cost shifting, I mean, then it becomes, the town is now having to build a road to road standards on our property versus, okay, share our driveway and have access. So it's, can have significant cost impact to the town.
What is this now, Greenmount Rolls, you pass? It says you, saying you pass.
I used to be the ones.
So just to be clear, the motion on the table is to approve to minor subdivision without stipulations about further approvals for drainage plans or agreements. Or anything else. Is
Right,
that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
all right, board, any further discussion? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Make sure we work out things to your satisfaction going forward.
And in the future, rather than pulling it off the agenda, brief us as to what you're thinking. Because we could have had this conversation 3 months ago.
Oh, I thought we did when we met with the town administrator.
That doesn't get communicated to us.
So,
She's very helpful and she plays that role, but ultimately, you're looking
yeah,
at a
totally,
decision.
your decision.
Yeah.
So keep us in the,
We play a
understand what's going on.
different role, and in the meantime, I will send those questions to the attorney to get that all worked out. All right,
I'll leave the vellums with the town administrator.
perfect. Thank you.
And they won't be until next week.
Yeah, they're out this week. The planning commission is next week. They would sign all that too. Item B, Sally Bush, Greenbox signage, Catherine Guthrie.
Good evening. At this time, Greenbox would like to hang a sign, the same place we're hanging our signs now. And we're also having an event in August. I'd like to ask the board's permission for us to hang up to 2 different signs a month, rather than coming back to the board over and over again.
It's gonna have the same
The
footprint, as
same,
it were.
right. Greenbox is, their sign has different dimensions, but it's the same size, the same footage.
You're asking for you or for Greenmount?
For both. Actually, for just permission to hang signs in that place of that size and of that nature,
Related to Sally Bush.
related to Sally Bush. So they would always be signs that relate to events happening in
And currently,
in the
it's
building.
what Greenbox is presenting in Sally Bush, and then August would be,
At the
An event
moment,
you're
it's a
having.
bingo sign for an event coming up on the 25th. After that, Greenbox will be hanging a sign. And their sign is designed so that they can change the daily events on the sign, kind of.
And it would be one sign at a time, take one down, put the next one up.
Right, right. And I don't anticipate there being more than 2 in a month, but we had discussed like 2 weeks at a time, having signs up. And it may not be that often, but, I just,
How often? How often?
no more than twice a month,
For how long?
no more than 2 weeks.
My only concern is that there's it's a situation in town where we tell all the businesses in town that they can't have temporary signs. And here we're making a concession for 2 weeks to decide you have a sign up all month long. So, let's assume I own a business
Mhm.
and I want to put up a temporary sign. It says, whatever it says, Perlman invites you to the barbecue.
Right.
We don't approve of those.
Why not?
We don't.
Well, no, I mean, I
It's a
just
good
read,
question, why
I
not?
just
But
read,
we don't.
I just read the code, I don't really know what you're talking about.
no, actually, within our ordinance, it stipulates that we can't have temporary signs if they come before the board and ask for approval. The
Okay.
only problem we have right now with the sign ordinance is people are putting them up without asking any approval. We've approved it for years, people putting up to fundraise for Sally Bush, to have an event at the bar down there, to have different events. But they do need to come and have it approved.
I just want to know where the line draws.
That's- To me, at least, that's where the line is drawn. You need to come in before the board and request permission for your temporary sign. And typically, when it's for an event for the town, usually gets approved because it is on behalf of the public good.
I just want to know where that line is drawn, that's all.
So if you're inviting me to a barbecue and you put that sign out, I'll be there.
I'll think about it.
Yeah, that's my understanding from reading the code for temporary signage is that it's, per board approval.
I know that chapter, I don't know the chapter numbers you found or not.
That is 16/400.
400. I know that's, we've made comments on that for potential revision in our code review to clean that up. I don't feel comfortable approving a space for rotating sign content under the temporary sign code. What that sounds like to me is a sign permit for a sign space, and that's different.
Now,
And also for a sign that is not approved, like when one has to go for a sign, it was 10 square feet and we had to go to the planning commission, that's for a permanent sign to have on your business. And we weren't allowed to put up banners or something.
And I'm not happy with that section of code, but we haven't rewritten it yet.
well, if you were coming before us and presenting a gas station price sign, you'd be all set, because that's exempted.
But I would be comfortable, knowing that we are looking at changing it, granting her request until we get there. We know what she's asking, she's gonna come back every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks, whatever, asking for these signs. And
When did we approve this, remind me?
Last month, 2 months ago.
No, it was longer than that, wasn't it?
No, Lana was here, Lana was here asking for the signage for Sally Bush, it was about 2 meetings ago.
Was it?
It was a little longer ago than that,
Yeah.
but
I would like to see, because I'm of the same opinion, I think you have to be time limited, because we may not get to this forever, so I'd like to see 6 month or 9 month,
I thought we had approved
timeframe.
this particular thing through August, through the
That's
summer.
We approved 6 or 8 specific events for 32 square feet for up to 3 weeks before each event.
So
Never
this
dated
is-
events.
And that's for Sally Bush, now where does Green Box come in?
it's the same, I'm actually, been asked to represent Greenbox We're talking about the same space, in the same building.
It's just the green box sign instead of Sally Bush event.
Mhm.
I'm fully supportive. I wish we had a better solution to communicate to the town events, which is my dovetail to another discussion about a town sign or an electronic town sign, the advertising, things like that, here on the town property. But that's obviously a smaller problem next week, but that's kind of where I would like to see us go, is to have availability to make announcements and gather people's attention, because I think that what you're proposing is a reasonable temporary way to get that across, but I'd like to see something better and more attractive into the future.
But I would move to approve her request through September, which would take us through their busy season. Give us a chance, whether we take that chance to revise this section or not. But that gives us our date, gives them the ability to rotate their signs through the busy season, take care of the green box stuff.
There's a motion on the table.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes, why isn't Greenbox doing their own petitioning for this? Or what is this? Why-
I offered to do it because I was gonna come before the board about a sign for our organization as well, so I just figured to save everybody some time if we could just do it.
The other event is not Green Box, correct?
The other event is
In your
not.
request, it's not Green Box events.
Mhm.
It's Sally Bush, it's events in the Sally Bush building.
Okay, so there's a motion, and second. Or no more discussion? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
One opposed. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you. Item C, the next item on the agenda is the recommendation for Gregory Williamson to fill the PC vacancy. We are doing something a little different with PC in that Catherine has volunteered to act as their secretary, which is in accordance to code, and it will also save us a little financial issues having a clerk here. And to that end, Catherine will be the secretary, and we will swear Greg Williamson into the planning commission.
You do appoint first?
Do a point? You're right.
You do appoint first?
I would move to a point.
He wants to be a trustee, is that?
No. You stay there.
What do you?
He just wants to be on plan, you have to stay there. So I move that we appoint Gregory Williamson to the planning commission.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you for your willingness.
Don't get any ideas. Mr. Williamson, please.
That wasn't meant to be sarcastic.
All right, could you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Greg Williamson,
I, Gregory Williamson,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
by the ever-living God
by the ever-living God
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Colorado
and of the state of Colorado
and the ordinances of the town of Green Mountain
and
Falls,
the ordinances of the town of Green Mountain Falls,
and faithfully perform the duties
and faithfully perform the duties
of the office of Planning Commissioner
of the office of Planning Commissioner
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
All right, thank you very much. Gregory, thank you. I will make sure that changes that.
It's good.
Gregory.
My company is good.
It's backwards.
Always has been. Congratulations.
We're in it now.
Is the appointment of a secretary
That
board
was
appointment as well?
planning.
Planning commission appointment. Thank you.
Nope,
She's not voting.
she's not a voting member, but she volunteered, so
Oh, me.
there you go. Item D, as amended, is introducing an ordinance and a resolution. These items, the resolution first is the repealing of Resolution 2009-05 and the establishment of a Trails Subcommittee. The ordinance is an ordinance adding Article 12 to Chapter 2 of the Green Mountain Falls Municipal Code to create the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee.
So which of the three of us wants to introduce?
Do you want me to read it?
No. I would like to introduce the ordinance. This is the output of the Committee on Committees that met with the Trustee Stevens, Mayor Newberry, myself, and the town manager, John Pick at the time, to look at how our committees are structured, our other appointments, which I think is in your board packet. There's various appointments to other agencies outside of the town as well, and committee policies. And through that process, we developed a draft ordinance and a draft resolution to revamp some of how we do things. Basically, in a nutshell, we felt that the importance of our recreational facilities in town, including trails, pools, parks, I'm sure I'm forgetting several, tennis courts and play areas, were such an important feature of this town that warranted a standing permanent committee for parks and recreation advising the board, established by ordinance right in our code, not a resolution. And so the ordinance is the creation of a standing permanent Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. Then because of that action, there are now overlapping duties. Well, actually, let me back a little bit. One of the duties of that, the charter of that standing committee is to develop and maintain a master plan to guide us in the maintenance and improvement to all those capital assets throughout the town. With that establishment, there are now overlapping and confusing overlaps between the established Trails Committee, the kind of ad hoc Parks Committee, or unofficial Parks Committee. And so the resolution is essentially making clarifying the duties of the Trails Committee in concert with the new standing Parks and Rec Committee to carry out the body of work related to the trails, which is one of their primary functions today. So that's a setup. I don't anticipate we take any action tonight other than to set the ordinance and for a workshop and a public hearing for future meetings.
I'm chairman of the park, the Trails Committee.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your effort to try to refine the system. But at no time did you ever consult with the Trails Committee on your intent, purpose, concept, and draft. You caught us by a complete surprise. We need time to take your ideas and concept to the Trails Committee to respond and give you their best advice. There are two elements in this draft that are most offensive to the way we've been doing business for 35 years now. And we would like the opportunity to give you a suggestion on rewriting part of this.
Well, that's one reason that we would have a public hearing on this, but all the meetings were open, they were all duly noticed, as all of our meetings are. And this wouldn't change the work of the Trails Committee. In fact, it allows the Trails Committee, under the oversight of a new Park and Rec Committee, to keep functioning within the rules of the town.
We have some specific suggestions to give you if you allow us to. I would suggest that you table any vote on this draft resolution until we have a chance to give you the best advice we can.
Well, I think that's exactly what Cameron just said. We're introducing this so that then we can have it move ahead in a public hearing.
This is the first part of the discussion.
This is
You're
the
not
first
gonna
thing
vote
that
on
happened.
the resolution tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Back.
I'd like to make a comment about that, and what it is the the Parks and Recreation Committee that you're talking about establishing is completely different than the Trails Committee. If you think about it, there are no trails outside of the Dorothy Kahn Trail. There are no trails in town itself. All the trails are on the outskirts of town, one place or another. The only conflict I can see between parks and trails is that the trailheads are in the park, or the trailhead is in the park. We only have one trailhead, and that's at Lake Street. And so I don't see where there would be a conflict. And I don't know why the Trails Committee would wanna oversee or sign off on the Parks and Recreation Committee. So, you know, I think that they, I suppose, for lack of a better phrase, they both work towards the enjoyment, the better enjoyment of Green Mountain Falls, but I don't think that they have, I don't think there would be a conflict in what the Trails Committee does on the trails, which are mostly on the outskirts of town, and the Parks and Recreation, which is kind of in the center of town.
Well, no, I'm sorry. What I like about the Parks and Recreation Committee is the whole idea of strategic planning and a master plan and a vision. And I think, you know, even as a small town, we need to be mindful, just as we are in the overall town, what our idea is for these public properties. And I think we've done pretty well for a long time, but we need to look forward to make sure that we're satisfying what we still need to do.
I think this board over the years has spent a significant amount of time looking at particularly the pool and some of the other recreational assets. And I think that's where a board could be very helpful to advise us as to some more thoughtful and more in-depth analysis of those assets and how to improve them, and what to do in the future, how to better manage them, those kinds of things. So I think that there's room for improvement. And I think with that being just one of our many things that we are focused on, it would be helpful if we have planning commission and other committees to have a committee that can dive deeper into advices.
And I also want to receive cohesive advice on, you know, issues that may require town investment, like, you know, how should we handle garbage collection and trash through all the recreational facilities? Signage, designing and cohesive, we're talking about updating some of the signs, is there a master plan for that? I want really cohesive advice across the town and not just one recommendation about trails and a separate recommendation about the lake or something like that.
And I think that idea fits in well with our master plan and our strategic planning, even down to what Vern was proposing with what the look is of the town. You know, and I think that would be good for the town as
I
a
don't
whole.
remember anything being done behind closed doors either, so.
No.
Yeah, following along that concept, I was chatting before this meeting, and I think that the idea of an overall sign plan for the municipality, which is inclusive of everything, so that we can have a tidier looking, more uniform look, more welcoming look, and I think guiding hikers through our streets, parking and all that stuff. But signage is one element, but I think it's really important and will help to set us apart. It won't just look like another piece of unincorporated
I agree.
Madison County. It can really be a signature for
Some branding.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I think that's a good idea.
I would tend to disagree that it needs to be left separate myself.
What?
Because looking at any possibility of taking on any financial support, the Trails does this all the time. You know, and I don't want to encumber the town for anything that way. And I don't see, to me, it's working well, so I don't see the need for incorporating the two. And then potential for financial situation. But that's just a sidebar.
The flip side of the financial situation is that working as part of the treasury in the town, donors to trails can receive tax receipts from the town, for their accountants and for their purposes, which they may or may not be able to do if it's a kind of an ad hoc committee, depending on how it's set up legally.
And we have been,
Seems to me we're doing well.
yeah, we were cautioned about that, on who's receiving money for the town. We have been
I
cautioned
understand that.
so that people
Again,
understand
it
it.
is, like Max said, it's on the outside of town, but they do most of their work, so I don't see us expanding our boundaries.
Just a little bit.
Or vice versa.
Maybe you have the cart before the horse. You've given us a resolution, draft resolution for making the Trails Committee a subcommittee of the Parks Committee. What's the status of the ordinance for the Parks Committee?
There isn't an ordinance for the Parks Committee. There wasn't one for the standalone Parks Committee.
That's correct, there probably needs to be.
There's a
So-
draft that I'm introducing tonight to set the matter for a workshop and public hearing.
Okay, you're gonna invite the Parks Committee to comment on it.
As
Public
always, it's a
workshop and
public
public
workshop.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, I think we may have trouble with the July 4th meeting, so I probably wouldn't schedule a workshop for that. But I would like to, I guess, discuss both of these committee documents on the July 18th meeting in workshop form. And then, how about let's set it for a public hearing on August 1st.
All right, I would move to approve that.
Second?
Any further discussion?
I'll just request that these get posted, the drafts get posted to the website.
All right,
Probably when the clerk gets back next week.
yes, the workshop will be the 18th because our next scheduled meeting is the 4th. I doubt that we will have a forum on the 4th of July. At least not a simple one.
Why not?
I get my revolution.
We have our own revolution. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion of workshop and public hearing passes. The next item is a public hearing for the budget amendment. We will,
Did we address those?
I was setting both documents.
Perfect, that's,
Yeah.
I'm sure what.
I did say.
was very efficient in that manner. Time to adjourn the regular meeting is 8:14. We'll put that on pause. We'll have a public hearing 8:14 budget amendment. Any items that anyone wishes to discuss regarding the budget amendment that we saw at the last meeting? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing at 8:14.
Just a comment on the budget. I know Berlin's been working very hard on that. I just don't think it's quite in a state to vote on tonight. So, did you include the meetings? I was gonna
We can
suggest,
just continue this.
yeah, I was gonna,
back up Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's
well,
back.
I would move that we continue the budget amendment hearing to a date definite on, again, July 18th, to make sure that any revisions that we propose in the meantime can get out to the public and they have a chance to respond before we vote on it.
All right, that will go on the agenda.
One of the major holdups, by the way, was trustee Quinn's request that we have audit final numbers to compare to before we go into an amendment, and the audit's not quite finalized, so it's kind of in, we have a good guess, but we want real numbers before we start tweaking things.
I'd also asked Berlin for a soft copy of the Excel file of it, so I can go through it a little better.
So we have a motion for continuance on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. So
You're
we'll
not,
make sure that,
you're not under any time constraints, are you, for?
No.
Vote to amend. Yeah.
no, we could continue this until the end of the year. And we'll make sure Berla gets that information out electronically.
Yep.
All right, moving ahead. Old business, comprehensive plan scope update. I don't have any anything further other than Verla is speaking with DOLA about the grant and about how we move forward with that. Item B is the personnel policy update. We're still waiting on a red line with that. Item C is nothing,
Mystery.
a mystery. Do you
So
have
what is
something
it?
to add there?
It's a blank line.
Yeah, that. Item D, P-card update. I know they got the information.
Yes.
All our historical information, we're still waiting to hear back from the bank. The donation for Mr. Bratton is still on hold pending the grant. Belvedere project update, you have anything further on that? It still is moving apace,
Yes.
a snail's apace.
Is there any timeline risk on that not happening this year?
Well, it means it's, when you move up.
There's little or no chance of it this year. I'd be doubtful if it's gonna even happen next year, but we'll see. One of the things is looking at the RTA accumulation of dollars, and we're not saving a few more years. It's our first dollars, and we certainly do lending, borrowing, and moving, but also it helps us to delay because we accrue the overages. And, yeah, so the sooner money gets the tighter money, the later money gets the bigger money. So,
But they did go ahead and survey and give our suggestions, so at least we've moved
it's moving,
ahead.
but it's moving at their availability.
Okay.
We get what we need for.
Yeah.
So I'll take the opposite there. So if there's a chance that we can do it earlier, because part of the budget amendment that we talked about was cutting the pothole allotment because of Belvedere being done and not wanting to overlap. If it's not this year, we go into next year, and possibly the year after, then we need to bring back potholes effectively, because that's where a lot of the money is. I don't know if there's gonna be more than $25,000 in overages, but that's what we pull back out of the budget. For the,
Tyler, at your PPRTA meeting, will you ask what that looks like for our schedule? Can you do that?
I can provide the latest financials if you had, probably in the rolling file cabinet. On the parking lot. But yeah, I can certainly send them along with the dollars, because off the top of my head, I thought it was a third and maybe 2/3 of the money was available. But again, I don't want that to constrain us, because it's
Right.
pretty negotiable.
Right, and we want to make sure that we're responsible with our dollars.
I think the dollars are less important than the availability of the county to provide us with free
I
services.
see.
And that's where I see the time, not the dollars.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
And unless we want to pay to expedite, we're at their mercy and at their leisure.
We'll stay at their mercy because, well, we're cheap in that regard.
That's right. That's all.
That's not, we can try to get a contract in now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see some people complaining about the tar work in Street Park.
I've asked them to come on up.
Right? Keep on coming.
They, I mean, they're at the shop, they can come on up, okay.
Yeah, tell them you provide donuts.
There you go.
Come on.
So as
Just let me know.
So as we
Oh,
go
cop
over the
shop,
budget,
so you said cop food, I'm sorry.
do we plan for not happening this year? Plan for it happening and then let it not?
How about we just have RJ get a call in just to see what the status is, since we haven't had him.
Sure.
Yeah, let's keep
I'll call
asking.
Kevin. See where we can.
Just see where the county is on the process.
Just keep reminding them that we're here.
We have some planning things that depend on the answers. so.
I would be surprised to see this.
well, when they were doing the public show, I got the impression it was this year.
So I got to-
They were willing to press it this year, but I just know that the contract is.
Let's just see if we can get.
Yeah, see what he's doing, let's
It
get
might be
it.
till next week.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get an update.
We
And
need
then we'll
some
say, look what
flyers.
RJ did.
It could come up tomorrow, right?
Item G,
And it's a heartbeat.
Item G, short-term rental ordinance. I don't have an update on it. As far as I know, that's still sitting on Burlow's desk since they are out of town. Does anybody else have anything on that? All right. Item 7, public input. Does anyone have anything they would
Oh,
like to
no.
address the board?
That's a 08400. Like to commend the board on their action today on the fire department. I think that was exactly right. I think it was prudent. I honestly think that the engineer kind of tried to run a little blazer on you, trying to get you to approve the drainage as well as the plat, and I think we approached it exactly the way it should have been. If you do dedicate a road, I would suggest that you dedicate it in honor of Tim Carcel, who is, his work with both the town and the fire department were exemplary, and I think it would be great to honor him. The only other thing please don't think that this is being overcritical, but and I know that the vote today on the plat was a private citizen's request to have a subdivision, but I would hope that the two firemen on the board would be concerned about a conflict of interest if they were to vote on any of the other issues that come up with the fire department. The money that was that the voters dedicated to the fire department was not overwhelming, and I would hate for a decision here with you guys approving something that that not all the voters were happy about would be a good idea. So just a word. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any further public input? Seeing none, there's correspondence, PC draft minutes for June 13th. And item 9 is reports. David?
Yes, I just want to mention, this isn't criticism, it's just a question of what. I just bought a new lawnmower for my property at the creekside, so I'm really not wanting to talk about the lawns around town. The lawn of the flagpole park looks great. Did you guys do that? Or was that done privately?
That's under green box at this time.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking is that my neighbor calls me when everything goes, and that's Carl.
Yeah, our
They're upset about their lawn not getting mowed by
our
the
summer mower is currently in the shop. They blew an engine last week. We've been fish mowing and weed eating to try to keep up.
Well, as soon as I do my lawn with my new mower, which is not a riding mower, but it's a push mower with a front wheel drive, I'll let you guys use it to do your Carl's car there, if you'd like.
They would like it better if you were to push it.
I can't, I'm ill.
You're washing your hair.
Thank you.
And therefore, that's the only thing we have a brush for that's it. And I'm probably concerned with the pavement on that, and I've talked with El Paso, hopefully they have a brush up here right now. Maybe we can hop on that and try to get some of the pavement.
Yeah, I just noticed that our season starts in the middle of June. The tourist season starts in the middle of June. Flagpole Park looks great.
Cameron?
No report.
Have a little bit of report. We're still waiting to hear from Fishing is Fun, which isn't that big of a surprise, because when they say the end of June, they mean the end of June is when we'll hear. But to that end, Greenbox has offered us an opportunity to have a mayor's corner on July 5th and to use that opportunity to speak about the grants and the fundraising opportunity for us. And I will be speaking at that. And hopefully Cameron will be bringing along PowerPoint.
I can give it to you on a flash drive.
So I'll be bringing along PowerPoint as well. It is generous of them to give us an opportunity in a forum to speak, and they have been very helpful Because what I originally asked them, and I still believe this, is they've been very generous financially. They also are giving us the opportunity to use their contacts to ask others to contribute as well. And I think that expands our opportunity for fundraising, and this is a big push, so I will be taking advantage of that. Tyler?
No report.
Michael?
Nothing.
David? RJ? Now, I have to ask you guys, have the ladies been texting during this meeting? They said they would be watching.
Oh, you're not at liberty to say.
I work for both of them.
He's not smiling because his phone's vibrating.
There's been discussion. My report, we've got another one that, we're gonna try to maybe get hold of tomorrow and get them up to the deal. We did capture the other one. Today was my day for animal calls. I got my first dog bite. Didn't actually break the skin or anything. It was only about that tall, so I'm kind of ashamed to admit it in the first place. The stealth camera.
Find out who dog it was?
Yes, I did. Yeah, they're in my list. The stealth camera has been moved. I haven't gotten any data back off of the first location. I can tell you now, the first location was just this side of the pool on Green Mountain Falls Road here because of some complaints that we had. The next one, I'll get all the data to you when I actually get it. I'm looking with Sean Goins, deputy. He has a wealth of information. I'm looking at starting the restriping on the vehicles, or the changing on the vehicles. On the Tahoe, he said it would probably be a lot easier to actually wrap it than paint it to match the other two. So I'm going to look at what both costs, and there's some state consideration requirement for reflective material on the side of the vehicles and stuff like that. Like I say, the dog kennel in the back of the Tahoe that's gonna have to come out came in really handy again today. So far I've had 3 ducks and a dog in there.
In Burma.
Verma didn't actually sit back there, did she? And unfortunately, on the evidence issue, the previous sheriff, Randy Ford, he had a setback in his health, and he hasn't been able to work with me yet. He was supposed to call me this week. I don't know if he's still feeling bad or whatever, but I don't want to push him too hard. But most of the information that I'm getting on that is coming from, because most of that stuff is from that era of policing. And that's basically what I've got.
All right. Did you have anything further to add, Archie? With that, we can adjourn this meeting. Time is 8:30. Tell those ladies.
I saw the state troopers in town.
Yes.
Yeah.